Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media, and tonight we have Dr. Nicole Price on the show, and we were talking off camera. I'm going to let Dr. Price talk about what she does, how she does it. But as I always say, let's go back to kindergarten first and tell our audience a little bit about yourself so that they'll know who you are and mention some of the people that were instrumental in shaping your personality and some of your goals.
Carlos, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on the show. I don't take it for granted that you're spending your time with me tonight.
All right, the ball is in your court, as they say in sports.
Yeah, so I grew up here in Kansas City, Missouri. I went to a school that is now closed in Kansas City, Missouri Public Schools, Sanford B. Ladd, at the corner of 37th and Bell Fountain. That's where I attended school until I got to the third grade. And I don't really remember my kindergarten or first grade teachers. They were pretty uneventful in my mind. But my second grade teacher was a Black man named Mr. Thomas. And before I had Mr. Thomas as a teacher, I used to miss school quite a bit. I'm the sixth child of seven children to parents who were poor. And so sometimes things got in the way of getting me to and from school. And Mr. Thomas asked me to ask my parents if I could catch the bus, the metro. And so at the time, we were living on 45th near Troost. And so at 7, I would walk from 37th and Bell Fountain down to 39th and Bell Fountain, catch the 39th Street bus over to Paseo, take the Paseo bus from 39th Street down to 45th. I probably could have walked that, but I took the bus and then would walk over to my home. And today that feels just unbelievable. But it was my dad thought that I could do it, and my mom had me show her, and here we are. And Mr. Thomas was one of the first people who understood that I had a love for math and sciences, and that I could learn concepts beyond my age. And so I think he's critically important for how I became a chemical engineer. But in fourth grade, I went to my neighborhood school, which was Bancroft, which is also not a school anymore. That is on like 43rd and Forest, between Forest and Tracy. And went to school there until I went to Volker Elementary School, which was a charter school. Also, I don't think that school's open anymore either, where I had another Black male teacher, Mr. Charles Cooper. He's still living, and he was just an exceptional teacher. But most importantly, he looked beyond the science and math component and helped me hone my public speaking skills. So I'd always been talking at church, speaking at church, uh, being the mistress of ceremonies for afternoon services. But it was Charles Cooper who helped me be more professional at that craft. And he was my teacher in sixth grade. And then I went to Lincoln College Preparatory Academy, and that's where I graduated from. There I was the mascot, and I had a litany of teachers who were amazing. In fact, I can't name one teacher that I thought was average or subpar in my experiences there.
When did you come out of Lincoln?
1994.
All right. I started my company at Lincoln Prep.
Did you?
Yes, that was back in 208.
Okay. I would have been long gone. But we just had our 30th class reunion. I missed it because I was delivering a keynote in Times Square that I had already had on the schedule. So I
My
missed.
hometown,
Are you from New York City?
New York.
I can hear the accent, that's for sure. Um, yeah, so once I left Lincoln, I believed I wanted to be well, at one point I wanted to be a preacher, but at the time I was told that women could not be preachers. I could teach, well, they didn't say that. They said I could teach Sunday school if I wanted to. And then later I felt like I wanted to be a comedian. I still have dreams and aspirations of doing that. But because I was good in science and math, it paid my way to North Carolina A&T State University, a historically Black college in Greensboro, North Carolina, That's where I got my chemical engineering degree. I think many people know Ron McNair, who was the only Black man who was on the Challenger that exploded, was an astronaut on that rocket ship. And then what was interesting is that's what the engineering hall was called, Ron McNair Hall. So where I went to school. And then Hallmark recruited me from North Carolina A&T. It's not common knowledge that Hallmark makes all of its own greeting cards, paper plates, cups, napkins, in some cases, even inks. So there I was in a production engineer out in the Leavenworth production facility. Loved working there, worked there in engineering, and that's when I matriculated into leadership. And then I transitioned into HR, where I was teaching leaders how to be better at their jobs, specifically in operations and IT, so more technical people. And I left there after 13 years, left a job I loved to go work for a global keynote speaker named Cy Wakeman. She was based in Omaha. And because of a fluke, I got an opportunity to kind of start a professional speaking business while I was working with her, helping to build out her content as an executive on her team. And in 2016, I started my own leadership development company focused on inclusive, empathetic leadership, and it's called Lively Paradox. And I've been here ever since. When I was working for Cy Wakeman is when I got my master's in adult education so that I could be credible in how adults learn. And then when I started my own business, I got my doctorate in leadership and management. It was important to me to be credible in the skill and in the craft. And so I was very grateful that I had an opportunity to do that. So I got my doctorate completed in 2020.
So off camera, I talked to you about some of the things I've read up on about. You did TED Talk down there at Morehouse.
I did. That
Yeah.
was on my
So
bucket list. I'm really excited about that.
hey, remember Dr. Price? I told you I don't usually do no background on anything. I said, Mr. Nelson, you should be shaming yourself. Go look this stuff up on Dr. Price and tell our audience about that because that's big time for us as a people.
I think at some point I'm gonna need you to tell me why you wanted to talk to me if you didn't, because you don't really know me that well. So I think I am interested in why you thought it would be good that I came on your show because I'm honored. Um, but yeah, I got a call from Morehouse inviting me to come and deliver a TED Talk. And I had been trying to get on the TED stage for years. In fact, I had gone and pitched an idea to TED Kansas City, which is, I mean, just upper echelon in terms of how they run their TED program. And I was declined. I was told very specifically that I didn't really have an idea worth sharing. And the folks at Morehouse said they had been watching my empathy revolutionary journey and they would love for me to come and talk about it. And I didn't know which direction I was going to take. I could have talked about empathy in a litany of ways, but I chose to talk about what a pimp taught me about empathy. And that's the
That's
title
it.
of. You like that
That's it.
title?
I'm saying when I read that, I was like, what is she talking about? We got to talk about that when we do this interview.
Yeah, I feel like God gave me that title. I had pitched two ideas to them and they approved both of them. And I just went with the one that I thought was the most compelling. I grew up across the street from a pimp, and I would watch him, um, fearfully watch him, and marvel at how he was able to get the most beautiful women to do the things that he wanted them to do. And later in life, as empathy started to be defined, and I started to learn that there's multiple types of empathy, and there's, me feeling what you feel, which comes from a different part of the brain from me understanding what you feel. I don't have to necessarily feel with you, to understand what you feel. And this pimp, his name is Brad, he's still living, was a master at understanding what other people felt and using that information to get them to do what he wanted. And in my study preparing for the TED Talk, I learned that preachers use it's called tactical empathy. So do hostage negotiators, PR professionals. We talked a little bit about programming. Folks in media understand cognitive empathy and using information and pictures and imagery to sway people better than most.
Yes. Oh, so now let's go to my other little cheat sheet uh,
Okay.
about you talking about elevating the school districts.
Huh?
Uh, what is that about? Breakthrough to excellence, it says. And what do you do when you're talking to the school districts? And then I will, after you tell me what you do, I will have a question for you about the schools in the urban core on a 1 to 10. If you'll rate what I ask you.
We'll see. We'll see if I feel up to rating schools.
All right.
I will. I will say that I feel like the work I do in schools is slightly unique. My expertise is not children. My expertise is the adults in the building. So, having worked for an organization that made it through 100 years and studying leadership principles that have lasted through the test of time, I noticed that organizations that do well are the ones that are concerned with how their leaders are experiencing work. They are concerned with how their general staff is experiencing work because they know that if those people are engaged and happy and credible, that their customers will have a good experience. Schools are slightly different. The way people, at least in the way people think about them, everybody is focused on the customer. Everybody is focused on kids. And so, therefore, the leaders are not having a good experience. The staff is not having a good experience. And therefore, how are they showing up for children? And I maintain that you just can't skip over the people who are caring for children. You have to make sure that those people have the competence they need if they don't have it, and that they have the energy, passion, and commitment to do their work every day. And the children will be taken care of. But what happens is all the way up to the superintendent and board members, we skip past the principals, the teachers, the bus drivers, the school cafeteria lady, of which my mother was one, by the way. Um, and we focus solely on the children and don't make sure that the capacity building is happening for the staff. And I think that's problematic. So, in order to elevate schools to the top 1%, I just really teach folks how to coach the people in front of them. If you are a superintendent, your responsibility are the administrators on your core team. Make sure they got their stuff together. You ain't doing your job when you're out there focused on if a teacher in the kindergarten is doing what they're supposed to do to the kids. Make sure your people right, because then they'll make sure their people are right. And then if those people are right, they will take care. The hierarchy does work in some instances. And I would say the larger your school district, the more likely that is true.
Do you think financial reward and budget plays a part in the solution?
Well, let me just ask this question. When you see a school that you call a good school, what's their budget look like? When you see a school that you call a good school, they have good outcomes. What are the teachers' salaries? What is the staff to student ratio? What does the food look like in the cafeteria? What's the situation on the bus? When you show up at the facilities, how are they cared for? And everything I mentioned costs money. And so, interestingly enough, I regularly run into people who say you can't throw money at it. And while true, books cost money. Field trips cost money. Exceptional professional development costs money. Good, healthy food costs money. To be able to make sure the grass is cut and there's flowers are edged costs money. And so I balk at this idea that money won't fix much of this because the best schools have money.
Well, I'm on board with that. Uh, in your tenure, how willing do you feel that administrations are willing to listen to your message? And that's superintendents on down.
Well, I think my clients are very open to listening to my message. The critical component is how many school districts as clients do I have? I still am probably heavy on the corporate side. In fact, I learned that there's a local school district that decided today, or at least overtly stated, that while our product is good, while they have seen it work, while they have used our methodology, because oftentimes if you need to pick my brain, that's free. You can call and I'm happy to help you. They know all those things. They decided that they have not moved the needle in terms of actually engaging us because I have never worked in a school.
Do you think race has anything to do with your industry
I think race has
and,
something.
and acquiring contracts and so forth? Again, uh, our our network, we speak truth to power, and we feel if our audience don't know there's a problem, it's somewhat our fault when we have guests on and certain questions are not even asked. So
Yeah, I appreciate you asking the question because I have two answers. I got my real answer and I got my hopeful answer. So my real answer, because I'm a present day realist, internal optimist. My real answer is when the nation is more culturally conscious, think post George Floyd, I had to turn down work. I had so much work because having a brown consultant was helpful in that particular environment. There's not a single institution in the United States of America that doesn't have disproportionality based on race. In that, if the outcomes are supposed to be negative, Black people are at the top. And if the outcomes are supposed to be positive, Black people are at the bottom. Not a single institution. You can choose healthcare, education, criminal justice, banking and lending. You pick your industry. And so I can't, like, what kind of engineer would I be if I didn't look at that data and say, that is absolutely impacting me. You can't swim in this water and not get wet. Now, my hopeful response is, if you are unorthodox, you must be exceptional. My strategy is evidence-based and proven. It's proven theoretically and it's proven in practice. I even offer 100% money back guarantee. If what I say I have, if you do it, if it does not work, I will give you all of your money back. No questions asked. And
tell me,
so, hmm,
go ahead. Because what I wanted, I'm the cutoff king, by the way.
that's okay.
Do you believe that, and I'm only talking about our community,
Uh-huh.
that they understand statistics? And when you start saying, I'm not talking about what you believe will work, what I am doing works, and I can show you numbers. Do you think that, because what I have found, you tell them 2 and 2 is 4, and they tell you, I believe it's 5.
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah,
find that they pay attention to statistics to show, hey, this works, you need to get on board? That's what I'm basically saying.
I think there's nothing uniquely wrong with Black people, right? I do think that, but I will say that internalized racial oppression is a thing. And when you consider that if somebody feels something deeply, facts are not going to change their mind. And as an engineer, I know you can tell, like, that is just so frustrating to me because I think about how I described it. I said, the woman had tried our program, tried my process, called, and we solved her immediate problem, kept them out of a lawsuit. And still, she's like, nope, not going to use you because you don't have, and it's like, what kind of out, if you just look at what kind of outcomes are you getting based on what you're actually doing, this does not make sense. But there is a rule that I have. You have to be aware you have a problem before I can help. I can't help if you don't think you have a problem that I can solve. And I am not in the making people aware business. I let people get to awareness however they like to get there. Where I struggle with the most amount of pushback related to data is honestly in the faith-based community, because my strategy also works for large faith-based institutions. But when I think about my faith-based clients, they are massive, largely white institutions. I have not had a single contract with a Black church. Not one.
Well,
Because they don't necessarily move people.
well,
God's got from heaven and
that's what I'm fine. I'm saying I've been in the media business since '08, and we're the largest Black-owned digital media company out here, and it's 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 just it's difficult. That's all I can say. When you're dealing with numbers and people are telling you about what they believe. Uh, so, in closing, what would you have to say to our audience?
I believe wholeheartedly that people know what to do. They don't always do what they know. If you just sit down and reflect on how you're thinking, how has it been working for you? How is that thinking working for you? And if it is working, by all means, keep doing it. But if it is not working, maybe just open your mind to the possibility that there might be someone else who can work alongside you together. Not that they're smarter, it's just they have a better lens to be able to see what you can't see because it's so close to you. I often ask my clients to put their hands on their nose like this, and I ask them to tell me what they see. And sometimes people say, I see my hand, but you cannot see your hand when it's on your nose. It's impossible. All you see is a blurry spot, and you see the peripheral of the room you're in. But when somebody can help you gain clarity of distance and look at it from an outside objective perspective, maybe there's just this small little thing that you have not seen before that is now in front of you. And I invite anyone who would like for me to help them do that. Again, the Pick Your Brain sessions are free.
Tell our audience how to contact you.
drnicoleprice.com, drnicoleprice.com, or they can call the office 800-914-9205.
All right. As we always say in closing, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
This is brought to you by Kansas City Business Association, working to improve our community.